Oh sorry, don't mind me, I'm just playing a bit of Genshin Impact at higher settings with 120 Hz. It came with the latest 2.2 update for the game. Oh, it's tasty. How has it already been over a month since these iPhone 13s came out? It feels like just yesterday I was doing my review, but here we are, several weeks later. I'm still using it as my everyday phone, and maybe some of you guys are actually watching this on your shiny new iPhone. So are we happy with it? Has it lived up to the hype now that we've got past that launch window where people get very excited about a new Apple launch? Well, yeah, I love this thing, and I can tell you that even though I was very close to switching to the Google Pixel 6 Pro, which I love, by the way, although to be fair, this is a good deal cheaper and kind of goes up against the iPhone 13 and the Pro, as opposed to the Pro Max. If you can afford it, I still reckon, even after the hype, this is the best phone in the world right now. One of the biggest reasons I love this is because the battery is absolutely phenomenal, and it is actually one of the main reasons I didn't switch over to the Pixel. There's been a couple of times recently when I've been traveling and staying overnight somewhere, I've genuinely not even bothered to pack a charger, as I know I'll have a good 35 or 40% left the next morning. I have also fully switched over to MagSafe charging just because I can't be doing with Lightning, although in Apple's quest to make me have to carry as many cables as possible, now that I'm also using the MacBook Pro 16 and I also have an iPad, that's MagSafe 3 as well as USB-C and also on the iPad, and Lightning on here, and also MagSafe but a different kind of MagSafe, and if I had an Apple Watch that would also be another charger. Bit of a faff. Please just give me a USB-C port on the bottom of the iPhone. It's all I ask, but you know, it's not the end of the world. But I tell you what, one of the things I have got used to, which I didn't know if I would, is the size of the Pro Max. In my initial unboxing and even my review a couple of weeks later, I was sort of thinking I might switch to the 13 Pro because this is just a bit too big. Surprisingly, I've actually got used to it now, and what made a difference was putting a good case on it so it doesn't feel quite as precarious and slippery in your hands, so you can do your finger gymnastics all the way up to the top to swipe down for the notifications or your quick shortcuts. And even though I still wish there was a halfway house between the 13 Pro and the Pro Max, I'm definitely used to this now. I reckon the 13 Pro would feel a bit small. But I still do reckon if my friends or family asked me what iPhone should they buy, I would probably say the 13 Pro. It's £100 cheaper, and for most people it's going to be a lot more comfortable to hold, unless you're happy to give yourself a month to get used to it. But either way, this screen and also the speakers are just top notch, figuratively and, well, literally. The notch is still definitely there. It really didn't make that much difference at all that it's a bit thinner because it still protrudes into the screen just as much. 90% of the time I forget about it until maybe I zoom in on a full screen YouTube video and it cuts off a bit, or I'm playing a game, but I still maintain it's a relatively minor inconvenience for having this absolutely fantastic True Depth Face ID. And that OLED Retina screen, along with the new ProMotion high refresh rate, movies, games, just, you know, scrolling through the UI, it all looks and sounds incredible. However, there are still definitely a few features I miss about Android on here. The big one for me, and maybe it's the same for you, is the lack of a universal swipe in to go back button. Why can't I swipe in from the right-hand side when I'm using the phone right-handed to go back and then eventually home? It's just kind of basic, and I really wish I had it. I also still find that as powerful as this is, and as fast with that ProMotion 120Hz, my S21 Ultra or Pixel 6 Pro still feel nippier and more responsive. It's a really minor thing, but I wish there was an option just to maybe double the speed of the animation so it was all a bit quicker. I also wouldn't mind some iPad-style split screen action on this as well. I mean, we've got the big 6.7-inch screen on the Pro Max. Every Android phone can do it, the iPads can do it. I know it's not for everyone, but a split screen option with my Google Maps and WhatsApp or my calendar and Gmail would be so useful on this. Clearly I'm using an iPhone, but I still use all the Google services. I'm forever in this tech purgatory. I can also officially say in this video right now, a month after my initial review, or at least when it launched, that I have not once used cinematic mode or the photography styles. There's nothing particularly wrong with them, although a 24 FPS or a 4K option for cinematic mode would be nice, but as cool and genuinely quite impressive as these features are, for me and probably most people, I just want the highest quality videos, and for photos I just want the iPhone to do what it thinks is best. Its processing is a lot smarter than I am. But I have found, since they added support for it after launch, I've been shooting a lot of video in ProRes. Because despite the much bigger file sizes, generally I'm only shooting 30 seconds or a minute of video at a time, and then either editing on the phone or with a quick airdrop to my MacBook, and then I play with it in Final Cut or Premiere Pro. The extra detail you can pull out of shots, the reduced noise, and together with that unbelievable stabilization you get with iPhone video, I can tell you that on more than one occasion I've left my Sony a7S III on the table and just shot with the iPhone. There simply isn't a better phone for video. In fact, I shot this entire little sponsored bit for this new Narwal T-10 robot vacuum and mop 2-in-1 on the iPhone 13 Pro Max in 4K ProRes, handheld, and no edits. So the T10 isn't your ordinary robot cleaner. It's one of Time Magazine's best inventions of 2020. It raised over $1 million on Kickstarter, and now it's here. So once unboxed, plug it into the base station and then place it where you like. Mine's in the kitchen. Then turn the robot on and connect it via the Narwal app on iOS and Android. Then you can either slot in the vacuum attachment or the mops, which I'll take for a spin in a second. It'll return home to charge, and then when you're ready, send it out to map out your space so it can plan its route. And away we go. But the best bit is if you switch over to the mop attachments, and you get 2 extra in the box as well, then in the base station, take out and fill up the clean water container. It'll then do its magic. You can send it out on a mopping run or schedule one via the app, and it'll clean your floors. Plus, every few minutes, it'll pop back to the base station to wash the mops before carrying on again. It's really clever and very satisfying to see how dirty the water is afterwards. If you fancy a 2-in-1 mop and vacuum robot, then check out the Narwal T10, and I'll leave a link in the description below.
The robot is in the base station.
Okay, back to the iPhone, and on the photography side of things, it's a little bit more complicated. I have been working on a Pixel 6 Pro versus iPhone camera comparison for a while, but it keeps getting pushed back as there's about 1 million other videos I want to make right now. And I really do like the Pixel's camera, and it does kind of highlight how artificial the iPhone's photos can be sometimes, with orangey skin tones and unnaturally raised shadows and saturated colors. It's all very pleasing and lovely to post on Instagram. It's hard to get a bad shot out of this, but it's not always the most realistic. We do of course have these nifty photography modes if you're happy to tinker a little bit, although as I say, I just quite like the iPhone to determine white balance and do all that processing. Maybe in Lightroom later I'll think, oh, that could have done with a photography style applied, but oh well. I also kind of wish the ultra-wide camera wasn't as wide. Photos are often just a bit too fish-eyed and can be a bit unnatural looking. It's not the end of the world, but a slightly narrower field of view would be my preference. So even if it's not flawless, overall I do think this is the best camera system on a phone, although we'll see what Samsung's S22 can do in just a couple of months. One of the biggest upgrades with the 13 Pro and Pro Max is this 120Hz ProMotion screen. It's dynamic, so it can adjust between 10 and 120Hz, which is great for battery, but it does, to a tech enthusiast like me, make a big difference to how fast everything feels, even if we do still have these fairly long animations. But I'm not convinced that the average person going into an Apple store would really notice or care. You probably would because you're watching a tech YouTube channel, but if your mum went and bought one, I'm not sure if she'd care that much about ProMotion. I mean, the same argument can be said, of course, about Android phones, but my point is it probably isn't really a reason to upgrade for most people, unless you're a bit of a techie enthusiast. And also, when it comes to games, there still are only a handful that have been updated to support it. Although just like the iPad, this will get better over time, and actually one of the most recent highlights has to be Genshin Impact. You can absolutely max out the settings because we've got that A15 chip, and this is one of the few areas that you can really appreciate the power you have in here. And then combined with this new 120 FPS support, it is just simply glorious, and I cannot wait for more games to get that ProMotion support. So even though this is definitely more of a 12S upgrade than a proper 13 in my book, I'm still having a great time with it. I still haven't been convinced to switch to the Pixel, and as much as I do miss some elements of my S21 Ultra, a month later, this is still my main phone with my personal SIM. But I'm not convinced it's really worth the upgrade, especially from the 12 Pro Max, but even the 11 Pro Max. Most people here in the UK are on 2-year phone cycles, although 3 years getting more common because phones are getting more expensive. Yes, we've got, 5G, smoother screen, slightly better cameras, and a few bits and pieces that are new, but nothing fundamentally different that when you're actually using them like this makes you think, oh, I should go and spend over £1,000 on the new one. But what do you reckon? Are you tempted to upgrade to the 13 series, or have you already got one? Let me know what you make of this in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.